Okay, so tonight we are moving along in our Psalms. This is very, sorry, I need to do that. So this week is community. So let me go ahead and share my PowerPoint. Okay, there it goes. Okay, so we're going to be, well, I'm planning on looking at two Psalms tonight, Psalm 85 and Psalm 22. And so, our first 2 weeks, we talked about honesty, and the title of our book that we've been kind of using as a guide is Open and Unafraid. And that really talks about the honesty aspect of the Psalms. But I want to start with a little picture here. Let's see if we'll go. So to me, this is our typical image of the psalmist. We have David out playing his harp with these sheep surrounded, all alone. That's that's what I tend to think of. Well, really, Psalms belong to the community. And so Psalms are part of the communal worship experience. And so this is a quote from Eugene Peterson, which was actually included in the Open and Unafraid book, but I wanted to credit Eugene Peterson for it. We often imagine wrongly that the Psalms are private compositions prayed by a shepherd, traveler, or fugitive. Close study shows that all of them are corporate. All were prayed by and in the community. It goes against the whole spirit of the Psalms to take these communal laments, these congregational praises, these corporate intercessions, and use them as cozy formulas for private solace. So, how many of you do think of the Psalms primarily as corporate versus individual? Corey, you're muted.
I think some of them I read some of them as individual, like when I'm, crying out to God, like when David was crying out to God or at different times. So I think of it in an individual way that way, but I can, at other times I could see a corporate, lamenting for our society or for, whatever. I guess I see them both ways.
Mm-hmm. And there's definitely aspects of both. But this week we're going to focus on the community, the corporate side of the Psalms. Okay. So I've been reading this book it's by John Levy. It's called You're Invited, The Art and Science of Cultivating Influence. And so John Levy, he is a behavior scientist, and he has organized these gatherings in his home that he's had Nobel laureates, Olympians, celebrities, Fortune 500 executives attend these gatherings. They come, cook the dinner themselves, clean up afterwards, and then thank him for allowing them to do so. It's like, okay, why would they do this? But the goal of these gatherings, and he started with people that he knew and it just kind of expanded, but it was to build meaningful and lasting relationships. And so out of this, so in this book, he references this study by David McMillan and David Chavis back from 1996 called A Sense of Community, A Definition and Theory. And in there, they have 4 qualities for community. The first is membership, the feeling of belonging or of sharing a sense of personal relatedness. And so, we are members of a church. Some organizations like Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, you have a uniform to wear to show that you're a member. And so there are things that, help unite you. Influence, a sense of mattering, of making a difference to a group and of the group mattering to its members. So earlier this year, so I am a member of the CPCU Society, a professional society for insurers. And at the beginning of the year, I had gotten an email about it, and I volunteered that I wanted to actually get involved. And so I ended up being on the committee and was the speaker coordinator for our I-Day, big insurance event. And so by actually getting involved and being able to do something, I had influence within the group, because I did not know the people beforehand, but it was I felt a much greater sense of belonging by doing that than if I had gone to networking events or happy hours or something like that, because I was actually able to do something. Integration and fulfillment of needs, the feeling that members' needs will be met by the resources received through their membership in the group. With this one, I was really thinking about the Sunday morning prayer group. This is a group, I just encourage everyone to try it out, because this is a group that you pray with. You learn so much about people by being with them and sharing your needs, praying with them. That's an awesome experience. And then shared emotional connection, the commitment and belief that members have shared and will share history, common places, time together, and similar experiences. And this is something that we really see in the Psalms, because we see this shared experience, and we'll see it in the Psalms we're looking at today, that looking back on this, this shared history. And so that's something that that shows up here in the Psalms. So, this is not a Christian study, but I think it's very applicable, these ideas of community that we see here in this study, and that we will be seeing in the Psalms. Another thing I looked at in the in the introduction to the chapter in Open and Unafraid, the author talks about his experiences of loneliness. And he talked about he came to the U.S. from Guatemala as I think it was like middle school, junior high type age student, and having difficulty fitting in. And I know I've definitely had gone through situations like that where I felt like the different one. If you really want to feel different, go to graduate school when you're 50. But in Project Unlonely, they have included some research on some different groups. So, and I just focused on older adults and younger adults, which are two groups which have the most experiences of loneliness. So before the pandemic, 1 in 3 adults in the US ages 50 to 80 lacked regular companionship, and 43% of community-dwelling older adults self-reported feeling lonely. And so that's before pandemic. Since the start of the pandemic, it increased. Some of the risk factors associated with loneliness among older adults: memory and cognitive decline, impaired physical well-being, increased risk for developing diabetes or heart failure, and increased risk of hospitalization and premature mortality. So, it's not just, it affects your physical well-being, not just your mental well-being. Among young people aged 18 to 22, they are significantly more likely to be lonely than any other generation in the US. About 2 in 3 feel shy, feel like others don't understand them, and feel that people around them are absent. And also looking before the pandemic, 60% of US students felt overwhelming anxiety, while 40% experienced depression so severe they had difficulty functioning. Suicidal thinking, severe depression, and rates of self-injury among US college students more than doubled over less than a decade. So, I mean, loneliness is a concern. And I was actually thinking back. So Rebecca, my oldest daughter, was very shy as a child. Lauren would know this. But compared to her other college friends, she actually made more friends as adults because she was heavily involved in a church as soon after college. Well, first after college, she came back to North Avenue because she was in graduate school. But then when she went up to Chicago, she got heavily involved in the church there. And that's where she met her husband. And so there's, just the community of church is, it's very important, and it provides community that a lot of people don't get elsewhere. Okay, one more thing, and then we will actually get to our Psalms. So this is a quote from Open and Unafraid by David Taylor. He said, "To people who find themselves lonely, living on the margins of community, hiding, feeling shame, misunderstood, or suffering fear and rejection, the Psalms make space for them. The Psalms show them that they are not alone in these experiences. The Psalms offer them consolation and a companionship of sorts. For all of us, the Psalms show us a picture of true community and invite us to embody such a community where things can be remembered and not forgotten, and things can be said out loud, joyful outbursts of thanksgiving, testimonies of rescue, confessions of sin, admissions of weakness." So we will turn to our Psalms, and as we're reading these Psalms, I want you to look for where you see community in these Psalms. So Psalm 85 I have on two screens. Let's see, Barbara, can you read the first screen? And Claudia, can you read the second screen?
Sure.
Step away. Sorry, I just had to step away. I can read the second screen.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Lord, can you hear me? I'm outside. Can y'all hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Lord, you were favorable to your land. You restored the fortunes of Jacob. You forgave the iniquity of your people. You covered all their sin. You withdrew all your wrath. You turned from your hot anger. Restore us again, O God of our salvation, and put away your indignation toward us. Will you be angry with us forever? Will you prolong your anger to all generations? Will you not revive us again, that your people may rejoice in you? Show us your steadfast love, O Lord, and grant us your salvation.
Let me hear what God the Lord will speak, for he will speak peace to his people, to his saints. But let them not turn back to folly. Surely his salvation is near to those who fear him, that glory may dwell in our land. Steadfast love and faithfulness meet, righteousness and peace kiss each other. Faithfulness springs up from the ground, and righteousness looks down from the sky. Yes, the Lord will give what is good, and our land will yield its increase. Righteousness will go before him and make his footsteps a way.
Thank you. So this psalm was probably written after the Jewish people returned to their land following the 70 years of captivity in Babylon. So reading this psalm, let's look at this first, verses 1-7 first. Where do you see indications of a sense of community here?
Elizabeth, this is Anne. I see it in the use of the words that represent community. He uses people, all, us, all generations, your people, his people, the pronoun them, people, our land, our whatever. So those terms to me are community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the word us is actually used 6 times in those verses, in verses 4 to 7.
Yeah.
So
And he talks about in verse 2 about the iniquity of your people. So that's a community, people.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm interested that it says all generations. It's not specific to one generation. It's all the generations.
Yeah. So I guess, coming out of captivity, we know God's anger, or, they had 70 years of punishment. So it's like, okay, is it done? Anything else stand out to you in this part of the psalm?
I just hear that voice from in verse 5, the pleading. I'm thinking about children to their parents. Mom, do I have to be in timeout forever? Really? For even and I wasn't the one who did it. It was my older brother who did it. So and I'm in timeout. And then that wonderful change in things. I've often thought of this as kind of also again children, where you try and bribe the parent. I got good test scores, so but will you not revive us again? And here's the carrot, that your people may rejoice in you. So there's an underlying thing, and when I was reading this earlier today, the underlying thought is we aren't rejoicing in you, but I also had a feeling of, and that's actually your fault. And that's what I read into it.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
One of the things that stands out to me, we're talking, we see the anger of God, but we go back to verse 2, you forgave the iniquity of your people, you covered all their sin, you withdrew all your wrath, you turned from your hot anger. We see the grace of God so strongly here from the beginning of the psalm. Anyone else have things that stand out to them in this part of the psalm?
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
I have a question, and I'm either missing something. I am missing something. But if at the beginning he's saying you were favorable, you forgave us, you took your wrath away, you turned away from your anger, and then he starts begging again, what made him change his tune from look what you did to all of a sudden, why won't you give us this that I've just talked about you having done for us before?
I mean, that's a good question, because there is a change in mood here. if we think about this, okay, if we think about it being post captivity, which is, I don't know for sure, this is what is thought. So, in some sense they were restored, but everything wasn't perfect either. So, I think they have seen God's grace, but maybe at this point they are feeling his anger also. I'm sorry, I don't have a good answer, but
Corey, I wonder if the word, I'm not sure what the word is when it says hot anger. I'm not sure what the original words of that were. But I'm wondering if they felt that he turned from his hot anger, which is, my shoe will come off and I will chase you around the block with it. That's my experience with my children. And to, you're in timeout. So maybe they had felt that there was a worse, they felt like the worst, that they were redeemed from the hot anger, but there was still anger. Elizabeth, I don't know if that makes sense.
mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. I'm not sure the exact, historical context, but I know, even when they returned to the land, there was still a lot of trouble going on. If you read Nehemiah, so. Yeah. So let's look at the second half. What stands out to you here? I really love verses 10 and 11. Not to skip the rest, but that image to me is so poignant. The steadfast love and faithfulness meet, righteousness and peace kiss each other. Faithfulness springs up from the ground and righteousness looks down from the sky. To me, that's just, I just love that imagery.
It's so much more hopeful than it turns to a much more hopeful situation or belief.
Yes.
From where we were, the first part.
Yeah, there are often mood shifts in the Psalms. Major mood shifts. In verse 9, here, Jillian, here's one word I did see, where it says that glory may dwell in our land. The word dwell is the Hebrew word Shekinah, and we speak of God's glory dwelling in the tabernacle. So God's glory dwelling in the land.
I have to duck out for a moment. Ted's calling and
Okay.
he's in his car and I'm concerned.
Okay.
Elizabeth, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi.
Welcome.
I'm driving home from Greenville.
Okay.
I just think about my own prayers and wonder if this doesn't sound an awful lot like a prayer that I pray, where I start out, moaning about something and then sort of go, okay, but this is who I know you to be, God. So I need you to show up. I need you to I know you're able, and And that honestly is sort of a chicken and egg question, right? I'm not sure if I learned to pray from the Psalms and therefore I've got the mood shifts in my own prayers because of the mood shifts in the Psalms, or if it just is this natural expression of, when we go to the Lord, we know we can't just whine.
Yeah.
Bring it around. So I don't know. That's the thought I had.
Yeah. Well, I like, there's different prayer patterns, and for the Sunday morning prayer, we use the ACTS pattern: adoration, confession, thanksgiving, supplication, which is a really nice pattern. And you do get all these mood shifts. And sometimes sometimes when I've prepared the, liturgy for the prayers, I could use one psalm for everything. So in the first lesson that I did, I included a hymn by Isaac Watts, and he is becoming my favorite new old hymn writer. He has written hymns on a lot of Psalms. And so this is his hymn for Psalm 85, part 2. So the second half. And so I really like the imagery that he uses here. Salvation is forever nigh the ones who trust in God's great care. Let grace descending from on high bless all with hope and glory here. Let earth know truth and mercy met when Christ the Lord came down from heaven. By his obedience so complete is justice pleased and peace is given. Now truth and honor shall abound, devotions fill the earth again, and heavenly influence bless the ground in our Redeemer's gentle reign. His righteous ways will lead before to give us free approach to God. Our wandering feet shall stray no more, will mark his steps and keep his road. Do these words make you think about the psalm any differently? So one thing,
I think they're all very hopeful. The words of this psalm. I mean, the words of this hymn. Each verse is very hopeful.
I mean, one thing that stood out to me is how he brought Christ into the psalm. So, I mean, in the psalm, if we go back to the psalm, the verses 10 and 12, steadfast love and faithfulness meet, righteousness and peace kiss each other. We see that in the second stanza, let earth know truth and mercy met when Christ the Lord came down from heaven. So, it's really bringing the words of the psalm, but bringing Christ into the psalm. So.
Elizabeth, I think that's the bringing Christ into this poetry and the words of this song. That's what brings the hope. It, and all of these words are just build an image of love and gentleness. The Redeemer's gentle reign, and the by his obedience so complete. I mean, it's just full of love, which is God, and the references to Christ then bring the hope.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with the psalm, I mean, if we go back to the beginning of the psalm, we saw God's grace from the beginning of the psalm, but we didn't have Christ to associate the salvation with directly in the psalm, which we do have here in the hymn.
Yes. I would love to sing this hymn.
Yeah, there's a lot of these that's like, oh, it would be really nice. I can't, a lot of these older hymns, I cannot find recordings of. So.
They're ancient. But I guess we could make up a tune, but they're beautiful words, and it's very, I think it touches your heart to just hear them read. It's wonderful.
We can we can send these psalms to Brian and sorry, blanking on his name. Jakari. Say, here, we want these hymns in the service.
Yeah, actually there's this couple out of Northern Ireland that's taking a lot of these old hymns and from like just like this, and they're reworking them into contemporary, like with a contemporary melody or contemporary beat or whatever. The Kristen and Keith Getty, I don't know if y'all heard of them, but they have wonderful, I bought several of their CDs and stuff. It's wonderful music, but they felt called to take these old hymns and preserve them, but put them in a more modern melody. So I wonder if they've maybe taken this and done that. I don't know.
I don't know. That'd be good to find out.
Yeah, they're good. Yeah.
And with the email that we got on Sunday for week 2, Megan included 2 things that Debbie Dunn had referred on. I can't remember this the psalm number, but I listened to both of those pieces of music, and they were just lovely. Just really, you could really feel embraced by the meaning of them.
I'll have to go back and look at those.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I listened. It's called the Psalms Project. You can just pull it up on the internet.
Okay. Yeah. So we do have a poem from Malcolm Wheat that goes with Psalm 85, as we do with all of the Psalms, because he did it for every single Psalm. So listen to his poem. His peace refreshes like a holy well. His mercy turns me round and quickens me, lifts me a little higher for each fall. And now within this psalm, he summons me to hear a truth my nation has ignored, a truth forgotten in captivity. So open me afresh to hear this word. Mercy and truth are met together. Peace and righteousness have kissed each other. Lord, how is it we have sundered them? Can peace be founded where there is no righteousness? Can some speak the truth, but speak it without grace, and calling others out are merciless? Lord, join together all that we have sundered, that we may flourish in your tenderness. So with this interpretation or this response to the psalm, what's your reaction here?
I think that word flourish is exceptional. He could have used a number of words: grow, expand, learn, but flourish is an extraordinary word, and we've come to use it sometimes, with a flourish.
Mm-hmm.
But flourishing is a result of being nurtured. Flowers and children flourish when they are nurtured. So that really is very powerful for me.
The question in the 4th stanza, can peace be founded where there is no righteousness? I mean, that, to me, that was a powerful thought, because a lot of times we will seek peace, and we will seek one or the other. We're not, we try to appease, but it's not true peace.
Yeah, and the roots of both of those words are the same.
But they're not, but they're not the same.
No, but I mean, it's the
Yes.
same, but it's the same idea. To make peace, you appease someone. And that's not what this is saying at all.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What does sunder mean?
I think it's like to break apart. Is that anybody else?
Yeah. To set asunder is to break apart, but it's I'm actually, as you asked, I was looking up what the Latin root of that was. So hold on a moment, because it's here we go. It is to split apart.
Okay.
But it's to split apart in a very violent way. You know, one of the interesting things about the English language is the word cleave. So you can cleave unto one another, but also you cleave something in half. And sunder is to separate or divide. But it's usually had a more violent undertone to the word.
Thank you, Jillian. That was very helpful.
Once an English professor, always.
So the other psalm that we're going to read tonight is Psalm 22. And typically we read this psalm in conjunction with the story of Jesus' crucifixion, because this is the psalm that he quoted the opening line from when he was on the cross. But today when we read it, I want you to look for the places in which you see community. So we're going to look at it a different way. Can I get some different readers? Let's see. Lisa, can you read the first page? And Corey, the second page. Sally, the third page. And the fourth page. And let's see, did I ask Jillian? No, fifth page.
Yes.
Me, right?
Yeah, you.
Okay. My God, why have you forsaken me? Why are you so far from saving me? Hold on a second, I've got to move my window. From the words of my groaning. Oh my God, I cry by day, but you do not answer, and by night, but I find no rest. Yet you are holy, enthroned on the praises of Israel. In you our fathers trusted, and you delivered them. To you they cried and were rescued. In you they trusted and were not put to shame. But I am a worm and not a man, scorned by mankind and despised by the people. All who see me mock me. They make mouths at me. They wag their heads. He trusts in the Lord. Let him deliver him. Let him rescue him, for he delights in him.
Yet you are he who took me from the womb. You made me trust you at my mother's breast. On you I was cast from my birth, and from my mother's womb you have been my God. Be not far from me, for trouble is near, and there is none to help. Many bulls encompass me. Strong bulls of Bashan surround me. They open wide their mouths at me like a ravening and roaring lion. I am poured out like water, and all my bones are out of joint. My heart is like wax. It is melted within my breast. My strength is dried up like a potsherd, and my tongue sticks to my jaws. You lay me in the dust of death.
For dogs encompass me, a company of evildoers encircles me. They have pierced my hands and feet. I can count all my bones. They stare and gloat over me. They divide my garments among them, and for my clothing they cast lots. But you, O Lord, do not be far off. O you, my help, come quickly to my aid. Deliver my soul from the sword, my precious life from the power of the dog. You saved me from the mouth of the lion. You have rescued me from the horns of the wild oxen.
I will tell you, no, excuse me. I will tell of your name to my brothers. In the midst of the congregation, I will praise you. You who fear the Lord, praise him. All you offspring of Jacob, glorify him and stand in awe of him, all you offspring of Israel. For he has not despised or abhorred the affliction of the afflicted, and he has not hidden his face from him, but has heard when he cried to him. From you comes my praise in the great congregation. My vows I will perform before those who fear him. The afflicted shall eat and be satisfied. Those who seek him shall praise the Lord. May your hearts live forever.
All the ends of the earth shall remember and turn to the Lord, and all the families of the nations shall worship before you. For kingship belongs to the Lord, and he rules over the nations. All the prosperous of the earth eat and worship. Before him shall bow all who go down to the dust, even one who could not keep himself alive. Posterity shall serve him. It shall be told of the Lord to the coming generation. They shall come and proclaim his righteousness to a people yet unborn, that he has done it.
Thank you. Thank you to all the readers. So, when I first saw this on the list for Psalms for Community, because Megan had put together the list at the beginning, and then I was kind of going through it, making some changes. And it's like Psalm 22 for community. It's like, oh, that Psalm 22. I don't know if that's really a community psalm. And then I read it, and it's like, well, yeah, I guess it really is. So, where do you see community here?
How many times is the word all mentioned?
I don't know. I didn't count.
Oh, Elizabeth, you've let us down.
No, I didn't count that
you
one.
always know the answers.
But yeah, I see it on this page. All the ends of the earth, all the families, all the prosperous of the earth. That's just on this page.
Mm-hmm. The word they, he uses they a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Yeah.
He uses the congregation.
Yeah. 25.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
But
verse 22.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah, 22. Yep.
And the page before that, what's 9 through 15 or 16? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so on verse 18, they divide my garments among them, and for my clothing they cast lots. And this is like the community of those bad ones who are doing this. We know around Jesus's cross, but that's a one kind of community, and opposing that is the singularity of the Lord. So he's separate from that, from that community of people who do those wicked things. And this is before Christ. So,
right.
But yeah, but still, there's something about the change of community of the those people who are doing that action, and the singularity of someone who is standing in the way of the cross.
Yeah, I guess, I associate this so strongly with the crucifixion, but this was a well-known psalm, a well-known communal psalm, so when Jesus said these words, people knew the whole psalm. They knew where he was going when he said the words from the cross.
Yes, yes. And I just realized this is about the community of oppressors.
Okay. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. And also there is what Anne's just pointed out is there's a shift from the singular, from me to all. So
yeah.
And I think that's really important when we're looking at community. That sometimes, we're looking at ourselves, and then we look beyond that, which is kind of what we're talking about here.
So I was looking at community here at the beginning of the psalm too. So we see this crying out to God, but in verses 3-5, we have the historical community. Yet you are holy, enthroned on the praises of Israel. In you our fathers trusted. They trusted, and you delivered them. To you they cried out and were rescued. In you they trusted and were not put to shame. We have this history, this shared history. This is one of our elements that builds a sense of community. And here we're seeing this shared history going back to our forefathers in this part of the psalm. And then we see all time and all places later in the psalm.
And I'm always interested when we get that word yet. I think we now don't use the word yet. We use the word but. But yet, that's what they used. But here it's yet you are holy, and then but it's. I wish my my Greek were not as rusty as it is. I think that when I look at this, Elizabeth, you talked earlier about the cadence of Psalms, and Psalms are a reflection on life. I'm in this pit, but there's life beyond the pit, but also, and yet, but also. So it's completely that cadence that comes particularly through this psalm. And today is Sukkot, I think. Yeah, it is. That when people build their tents and celebrate that God is faithful and rescues them and feeds them and does all of those things. But this, I don't know that I've heard anywhere in the Bible where, but I am a worm and not a man. That's an extraordinary confession.
I'm going to turn to, this is an aside, a preview for the poem, for Malcolm's poem. So on verse 21, the Coverdale translation of verse 21 is, "Save me from the lion's mouth. Thou hast heard me also from among the horns of the unicorns." So look for that phrase when we get to the poem, but instead of the horns of the wild ox and the horns of the unicorn. So
Elizabeth, I would just add one thing, and that is the irony of the psalm beginning, my God, why have you forsaken me? And to have Christ speak it, it's a singular act that he does for the sake of all of us, which we know and we can't avoid knowing and thinking about when we read the psalm. But the other piece for me that makes it a communal psalm is that sooner or later we will all cry out, my God, why have you forsaken me? Sooner or later we're all going to come to some kind of crisis in our lives if we haven't already, and more than once. And we feel so alone in those moments. And yet it is common to all of humanity to have these moments of feeling so alone. And the hopefulness of the psalm is for us to grow in empathy for one another for the times in which we find ourselves in those places, because if we haven't already been there ourselves, we know that our time is coming. I don't know if that makes any sense, but that was what I was thinking.
yeah, thank you. Well, it really goes with, I had written down a note on this page. It says, and I wrote, when the psalmist was in despair, he was alone. When he has been delivered, he is in the midst of the congregation. And so whenever we're in despair, whether or not we're physically alone, we feel alone in our despair. But
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But deliverance yields to, you want to share it with everyone.
Well, and in that regard, I talked about this last Thursday morning. In that regard, I'm reminded of the woman at the well who was, there alone, and upon receiving deliverance, really, from Jesus, wanted everyone to come and see the man who had told her everything she'd ever done.
Yeah, when I was reading this psalm in particular, yes, I was thinking back to the story of the woman in the well too that you shared, because yes, it really is. We here in verse 22, I'll tell your name to my brothers in the midst of the congregation. I'll praise you. I mean, she was so excited. I mean, she had been so alone and separated, but now that she has the good news, she is so ready to share it with everybody.
Yeah, and she's just been called out by Jesus.
Yeah.
And she pretty much does the equivalent of putting it on Facebook.
Yep.
She goes out there and tells everyone. And there's so many people. She's obviously well known because so many people get to meet Jesus.
I was going to share, this is verses 25 to 31 from the Message. I always like to get a little Eugene Peterson in here. Here in this great gathering for worship, I have discovered this praise life, and I'll do what I promised right here in front of the God worshipers. Down and outers sit at God's table and eat their fill. Everyone on the hunt for God is here, praising him. Live it up from head to toe. Don't ever quit. From the four corners of the earth, people are coming to their senses, are running back to God. Long lost families are falling on their faces before him. God has taken charge. From now on, he has the last word. All the power mongers are before him, worshiping. All the poor and powerless, too, worshiping, along with those who never got it together, worshiping. Our children and their children will get in on this as the word is passed along from parent to child. Babies not yet conceived will hear the good news that God does what he says. I just find some of this language just really powerful. The picturing it, the down and outers sitting at God's table, the power mongers worshiping. I mean, this, this translation makes it real. anything stand out to any of the rest of you on hearing it this way?
Live it up from head to toe. Don't ever quit.
And the fact that all the rich of the earth, verse 29, are power mongers.
Uh-huh.
That's really different.
Mm-hmm. I also like how the generations are thought of, our children and their children, then babies not yet conceived. I mean, you really see it being passed on. So, at the beginning, we were talking about the past, going back to our forefathers. Now we're seeing it really moving on to the future, that it's that community is not in a single time and place. Community includes our past and includes our future.
Those verses 27 to 28 in this translation are particularly poignant in terms of the whole immigration crisis.
Mm-hmm.
Not just Afghanistan and Haiti, but everywhere else where there is injustice. And I was just talking with someone today about Christians who are fleeing, and that when this particular family that was mentioned, they were fleeing and they knew that God was going to take care of them, and so it was known that they were fleeing, and then people joined them because they were fleeing, but then they told them why they were fleeing and what they believed, and they told the story of Jesus.
Uh-huh.
And now I think there are 67 people in a group that started with 5.
Wow. So the hymn that I chose for this psalm is actually not an Isaac Watts, but I really like this one. He did have one for Psalm 22, or one or more for Psalm 22, but I really liked this one, which is from the Trinity Psalter. This really goes with the second half of Psalm 22. Or amid the thronging worshipers, Jehovah will I bless. Before my brethren gathered there, his name will I confess. Come, praise him, ye that fear the Lord, ye children of his grace. With reverence sound his glories forth and bow before his face. The burden of the sorrowful, the Lord will not despise. He has not turned from those who mourn. He hearkens to their cries. His goodness makes me join the throng where saints his praise proclaim, and there will I fulfill my vows mid those who fear his name. He feeds with good the humble soul and satisfies the meek, and they shall live and praise the Lord who for his mercy seek. The ends of all the earth take thought, the nations seek the Lord. They worship him, the King of kings, in earth and heaven adored. We have some music.
Sorry, I'm music for this. But
So, any aspect of the hymn version of this psalm stand out? I like his goodness makes me join the throng. And I like the ends of all the earth take thought, the nations seek the Lord. They worship him, the King of kings, and earth and heaven adored. Like the ending.
You know, we're focusing on community. And I love that amid. The first word is amid, in the midst of. And it's actions that this person is doing in front of everybody. I'm going to talk about God in front of all of you. So come on, praise him with me. And if you're sorrowful, he doesn't despise that. He understands that. His goodness makes me join another community, the throng of saints who are praising. And the last line of verse 2, amid again, but it's mid because of the rhyme. And then there are all the action verbs. Will bless, will confess. And then 3, he feeds, satisfies, they'll live and praise. And that wonderful, wonderful ending. They worship him, the King of Kings, in earth and heaven adored. And he's got adored rhyming with Lord. Quaint, but it worked. Yeah, so
I guess,
the actions through it are wonderful.
So I just was thinking about when you were talking about amid the thronging worshipers, starting it. So the Open and Unafraid book started with honesty, and then we're going to community. And it's, this is really honesty in the midst of the community, in that we are honestly praising, but we are honestly sorrowful as well. So whether, whatever is happening in our life, we are sharing it with our community. We are being open and unafraid. So as our time draws near, I'm going to end with Malcolm Wheat's poem on Psalm 22. Look for the unicorns. Before he shares with us the golden crown, he comes to share with us the crown of thorns. Our hurts and hates close in and hem him round, mock and humiliate him. All the scorns with which we blaspheme God in one another are concentrated here among the horns of unicorns, the lions' mouths, the slather of our devouring wickedness. He takes it all and turns it into love. He gathers all of us and by atonement makes our peace with God. He speaks to us of mercy, even as we pierce him. No one slakes his thirst. I tremble at the mystery, for Christ himself is crying through this psalm to suffer my own dereliction for me.
Mm. 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 Mm.
That's really powerful.
Now, and even though his focus here is on the suffering Christ, we do see hints of the community here. Before he shares with us the golden crown, we see the community there. He comes to share with us the crown of thorns. So the sharing of Christ's glory and suffering. We have the communal, our hurts and hates close in and him and round. So we have, we see this, the communal aspect of the crucifixion in that.
And then I love the way the picture he paints of Jesus taking the community, embracing us in the third verse where it says he takes it all and turns it into love.
Mhm.
He gathers all of us and by atonement makes our peace with God. So it's like he gathers us up, he embraces us
Uh-huh.
and gives us to God to be forgiven and restored. It's just beautiful. It's a lot prettier than the psalm itself, I have to say that.
And I think a lot more hard hitting for me in a way. You all know that I'm an English professor or was, but if you look at the poem, the lines are run on. So it's, although he gathers, verse 3, but it runs on to all of us.
Mhm.
But you have to pause. You have to take that breath. And so instead of saying he gathers all of us, you read he gathers, oh, all of us? And by atonement makes our peace with God. It's amazing. And that I tremble at the mystery of Christ, for Christ himself is crying through the psalm to suffer my
Oh,
own
yeah.
dereliction for me. And dereliction is not a word that we use often. And so for Phoebe, who is wonderful and part of us, and like a non, giving us a good dereliction. Okay.
Yeah, next time I'll have to
It's
look
the
all these words up
idea.
beforehand.
Okay, it's so dereliction. I won't give you the whole blah blah, but it's really we usually talk about dereliction of duty, something that we've not done and we should have done. But it's the idea of being abandoned, right? Left behind, abandoned. But there's more than that. It's because you've been abandoned, you've become dilapidated. So when we talk about a derelict, that's often what we say when we pass somebody on the side of the street who is homeless, who's been abandoned and has become dilapidated as a result. And here he's saying Christ is suffering our own having been abandoned and being dilapidated. And we've been abandoned, I guess, Elizabeth or Megan. Our dereliction is inflicted on ourselves
Mhm.
because we haven't fulfilled what we should be as children of God. My take.
Julian, thank you for your English professor input. That was especially helpful today. So we have come to the close. I want to close in prayer.